Thank you for joining us for new strategies for achieving 100% seatbelt use. We're delighted that you're joining us today for our pre-annual meeting webinar. This webinar is sponsored by Auto Glass Safety Council. The nationwide seatbelt use rate was 90.4% in 2021. And so we're wondering what it's going to take to get those remaining motor vehicle occupants buckled up. Well, the Auto Glass Safety Council, one of our 2022 highway safety champions, is sponsoring this webinar to help us close the gap. Please join me in watching this video from their president, Debra Levy.
Hello, my name is Deb Levy, and I am the outgoing president of the Auto Glass Safety Council, or AGSC for short. AGSC is pleased to partner today with the Governor's Highway Safety Association and sponsor this program about occupant protection. Occupant protection programs and strategies reduce the catastrophic results of automotive crashes. Glass is an integral part of any vehicle safety system, and improper installation is a safety hazard. AGSC works hard to ensure the proper replacement of auto glass. AGSC's members are installation companies and technicians and suppliers of materials such as glass and adhesives. They are insurance companies and safety advocate and those who provide auto glass information and services. AGSC developed the Auto Glass Replacement Safety Standard, also known as AGRESS, which is a voluntary industry standard. It also administers the industry certification program for technicians as well. Our members agree to follow the standard when replacing your windshield and to use only AGSC certified and trained technicians to work on your car. Our members undergo random in-person vigorous audits of their work by our independent auditors on a regular basis. They are the companies that work hard to make sure glass is replaced safely. Glass itself plays a big part in making today's cars safe and protecting occupants. The windshield supports the structural integrity of the car, and if it's not installed properly, the results can be catastrophic. Unfortunately, improperly installed windshields happen more than you would imagine, as illustrated by one of our member shops, Don's Mobile Glass in Modesto, California.
Okay, even though your windshield may look safe, that might not always be the case. This one came in for glass being loose, and there's absolutely no contact. And to think someone was driving on the highway like this.
Jacques Navad, who is a training manager at Don's and also chairs our ADAS committee, says that his company sees a vehicle like the one you saw in the video 2 or 3 times a week. Windshield installation has become even more complicated with the advent of advanced driver assistance systems, another acronym, ADAS. ADAS is in most later model cars, and those cars depend on the camera embedded in the windshield to aid the driver in a safe ride. The auto glass technician replacing your windshield must be properly trained and have access to proper tools to be able to calibrate the camera to the millimeter when a new windshield is installed on any vehicle. Our panel of experts today are experts on the use of one of the most long-standing and most effective occupant protection systems there is. That, of course, is seatbelts. All of us in the safety community want to contribute to a safe systems approach to reaching 0 traffic deaths. AGSC is pleased to work with the GHSA and many other organizations to achieve this goal. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for that. We very much appreciate their support of our annual meeting, and we're looking forward to seeing them there in Louisville. My name is Kerry Chausmer. I'm the Director of Programs and Member Services at GHSA, and it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. What we're going to do is we're going to introduce all of the panelists, and then we'll have a panel conversation. So at any time, please do submit your question using the questions box to help us advance the conversation. Well, Kristin Smith has pretty much done it all in communications, from teaching high school English to editing a magazine. She was a journalism teacher, a writer, a blogger, and a digital and marketing communications manager before landing at Uber and working her way up to her current position as the global head of road safety policy. She has been instrumental in keeping occupant protection front and center and in the back seat with Uber's app that reminds drivers and passengers to buckle up. Kristin, thank you for being here today. We're looking forward to learning about how Uber is helping us get to 100% belt use.
Thanks so much, Kerry. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Kristin Smith. I'm the head of road safety policy at Uber. I'm honored to be here today to talk about this important topic of occupant protection and the work that our company is doing to improve seatbelt use. Uber has a long-standing partnership with the Governor's Highway Safety Association, and we know that private sector companies are critical partners in road safety. There's ways for us to leverage technology to improve safety for our users, as Kerry mentioned, our new seatbelt alert product, but we're also really committed to using our scale to improve safety for all road users, both on and off the platform. In 2017, Uber made a commitment to stand for safety and put safety at the heart of everything we do. In the last few years, we've doubled the size of our safety team and invested deeply in road safety and interpersonal safety. Part of our commitment to leading on safety is being transparent about safety issues that do happen on the platform or that impact the platform and what we're doing to reduce them. Part of that is we made a commitment to publishing US safety reports that talk about the most critical incidents connected to the platform. And we just published our second report last month, so I encourage you to take a look at that on our website. High-level findings from the safety report on the motor vehicle side, we saw that Uber's fatality rate is about half the national average per VMT. We also saw the impact of what's happening nationally on our roads on our own platform. So of course, Uber operates on the same streets as everybody else. So the behaviors and the dangerous increase in dangerous driving during the pandemic impacted our platform as well. We did a really deep dive on some of those unsafe behaviors that NHTSA really highlighted during the pandemic, including impaired driving and speeding, the overwhelming majority of which were the result of third-party drivers. And we also did a deeper dive into looking at unbuckled passengers, both on our platform and off. And unfortunately, we did see increases in those numbers of unbuckled passengers, consistent with what we were seeing in the US overall. So, we're really committed, as Kerry said, we've done a lot in this space to improve seatbelt use. And our newest feature that I'll talk more about today is the seatbelt alert. That the way that it works is when a driver gets ready to start the trip, there will be an audio sound emitted from their phone, and the riders will then get a push notification reminding them to be buckling up. And we're seeing some really promising results of that already. But what we saw in the report is that technology alone isn't going to be solving this. And so we know that it takes a broad coalition and a safe systems approach to get to the Vision Zero. So it's why, in addition to the tech interventions that we're really making some bigger investments in the larger road safety landscape. So part of our commitments is we're doubling down on our work to reduce impaired driving and pledging an extra $1 million this year to the cause. We know that the best defense, or one of the best defenses against a drunk driver, is wearing a seatbelt. So we're committed to working on both sides of that issue. We're also pledging to support Vision Zero efforts in cities where we operate. We know that it takes a comprehensive and safe systems approach to address these issues. And then finally, we're committed to supporting Families for Safe Streets, which many of you may be familiar with. It's a group that's made up of volunteers who have lost loved ones in traffic crashes. I am one of those people who has lost a loved one to a drunk driver, so I know the impact that it can have on families. So we're really proud to be supporting Families for Safe Streets and helping them grow their movement nationally. And I really look forward to partnering with GHSA on occupant protection and working with other groups to help us get to full adoption of seatbelts. Thanks again for this opportunity.
Kerry, you muted.
about that. I think it has to happen at least once. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kristin. We appreciate you sharing Uber's an overview of the program. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Jackie Stackhouse-Leach. She is considered the first lady of child passenger safety in New Jersey by those who know how many lives she's impacted through education and training. She works as a health educator and child passenger safety technician at Morristown Medical Center. And 13 years ago, she encouraged Northern New Jersey Safe Kids, Safe Communities to partner with Chester First Aid Squad. She's been a volunteer at the inspection station for 27 years. And by looking at the demographics of visitors to the station, she's been able to really close the gaps in underserved communities. Now she and her team schedule and run most of the certification classes in the northern section of New Jersey, and she supervises 7 inspection sites across 3 counties. So she's won a number of awards, most recently the 2022 National Child Passenger Safety Instructor of the Year by the National Child Passenger Safety Board. And she's here to share how virtually C-checks have evolved and are here to stay. I've known and respected her for many years, and I'm really pleased to introduce her to you today. So Jackie, take it away.
Thanks, Kerry. Thanks so much. Yeah, so back in 2020, we had 5 inspection sites in northern New Jersey. March 11th was just a regular day, regular busy day. Moms, dads coming in, looking for, assistance with car seat installations. And usually we get a lot of 3 across. So we talk about that. Mom decides she's going to purchase some specific seats, come back next week, all good, and we're going to help her install her seats. On March 12th, had a meeting with my supervisor, KJ, and all non-essential employees had to shut down their programs. So we actually have a really good reputation of following through with what we need to get done for these parents. And so I went into mode of how are we going to make this work. And so I contacted Mom and I said, hey, our programs are shutting down. How about we do a FaceTime meeting? And she was all for it. So she got her seats, and I verbally instructed her to put her 3 seats across to her little SUV, and she did it 100% by herself. And that's where it all started. Talked a lot with my supervisor KJ, and we decided to make it go virtual. We put our notifications on some social media and our Prevent Injury website, and apparently it worked because between March and August, 250 parents were actually educated by myself. It could have been infant seats all the way to booster seats, and sometimes just a lap shoulder and making sure the child was ready. Once that kind of steadied out, we started doing some virtual education with Head Start programs, and the Head Start programs were pretty cool because, as you can imagine, the moms were jumping all over the place with their kids and the pictures, and so it was a little bit of distraction, but at the same time, the parents were getting information. It's completely changed the way that I educate parents. It's completely changed the way that we educate parents in our inspection sites. And even in our CPS classes, we've seen a change where we used to be touching the car seats, and now it's the student in the classroom 100%. We're barely touching them. We're handing the seat and showing them and talking them through it. And the same thing at our inspection sites. The parents are, touching the adjuster straps and pulling the harnesses loose and flipping the seats over, and really and truly barely any more touching. I think that virtual will be here for a long time. I don't think it's going to be going anywhere. For us, it's cut back. Obviously, March to August was COVID shutdown time, and as we opened, our inspection sites are slowly but surely getting more and more busy. But along that, we're still doing 1 or 2 virtual car seats a month. So there is still a need, and I think it's going to continue. So I think that's where we're at right now.
Thank you, Jackie. For those of us that are CPS technicians and instructors out there, you're talking a lot about educating outside the vehicle, which is the learn, practice, explain mantra that we learned about in class and have dedicated ourselves to.
Yeah.
But we're going to shift just a little bit to Tenille Kimberlin. She is currently the Director of Traffic Safety for the Kansas Traffic Safety Resource Office, where she leads a team of 10 staff members. They work across the entire state in all areas of traffic safety. Her office has a program for every age to educate about the importance of safety on the road, and they host statewide trainings for CPS classes, car fit events for older drivers, and booster belts to safety brake for K through 6th graders. And what she's here to talk about today is SAFE. Seat belts are for everyone, which is a program for teens. Tenille has been a traffic safety advocate for almost 15 years and is passionate about teen drivers and their safety on the road. So Tenille, it is truly a delight to welcome you to today's conversation.
Thank you, Kerry, and I'm excited to be here to talk about SAFE. We have lots of programs across the state that we've developed over the years, but SAFE is probably the one that we're most proud of. It's also been nationally recognized, and I say thank you to GHSA because in 2010 we won the Peter K. O'Rourke Special Achievement Award from the organization. So that kind of helped us get our foot in the door with where we wanted to go with this program. So like Kerry said, SAFE is a team-operated program that just focuses on teen seatbelt usage and teens buckling up. It was created in 2008 by a sheriff, a law enforcement liaison, and a group of students that got together to try to help decrease the amount of teens that they were seeing being killed on highways. The sheriff and the law enforcement liaison started going through those in their communities and having to take care of these families that cost for no reason when they couldn't just been buckled up and most likely would survive the crash. So they got together with these local teams and they created the program. The thing that I will say about the program that makes it unique to Kansas is that we have unannounced seatbelt usage or unannounced seatbelt surveys. They do educational activities every month. They do pledge card signings that say they will always wear their seatbelt every time they're in a vehicle. And then they also do prize drawings. But the thing that makes it most unique, I think, is the fact that we have an enforcement campaign that is done in the spring. So not only are we getting the message, doing educational activities with the kids, then they are also getting that enforcement piece that we all know helps to reinforce behaviors and make sure people are buckling up like they should be. So they go in around the schools for a 2-week period and they patrol the schools and most of the time when we've collected the data on that, it's the adults that are the worst as far as citations that are given. So the kids really do kind of embrace the message. They enjoy the program and they're doing the right thing. So case in point, in 2009, our teen seatbelt use observational survey rate was 61%. And this year, we are at 86%, and that's a 25% increase over 15 years. And most of us that work in traffic safety know that to increase the seatbelt usage percentage, usually if you get 0.5%, 1% a year, that's really good. But we have increased by 25% the last 15 years. I can't take all the credit for SAFE being part of that because the state also implemented a primary seatbelt law during that time, and we also added a GDL, a graduated driver's licensing bill, as well for the teens. So I'm excited to talk to everyone about this, and I look forward to answering some questions and giving some more information about the program. Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks, Tenille. It's interesting you talk about enforcement because our next guest is going to talk about that.
Yes.
During his 25-year career in law enforcement, Tim Burrows spent time in primary response, traffic, detective operations, corporate communications. He was an academic instructor, and he was a frontline policing supervisor. So his experience and focus on educating law enforcement professionals on digital and social media programs to really establish relationships made him a perfect fit to join GHSA as the National Law Enforcement Liaison, or LEL, program manager. So for the last 3 years, he's worked with LELs who serve as vital links and conduits between highway safety offices and the law enforcement community. So Tim joins us today to talk about how and why law enforcement agencies can and should include seatbelt enforcement in their activities. So Tim, take it away.
Kerry, thanks so much for having me on, and special thanks to the Auto Glass Safety Council for putting together the opportunity for this webinar. A very important topic. As Kerry said, I was a sworn police officer for 25 years, and as much as there was a lot of things mentioned in that bio, traffic was truly my passion and still is, and traffic safety. I had the opportunity to manage and help deliver safety programs as part of our repertoire. And one of those things that we did was inspections and information sessions. And I really took a lot out of being given the opportunity to talk to new parents about the importance of a child safety seat and to make sure that everybody could be buckled up, not just the way it looks, but also done properly and safely. So being part of this is truly an honor for me, and it's a humbling experience. My role is the National Law Enforcement Liaison Program Manager. I get to work with over 200 law enforcement liaisons across the country that serve their state highway safety offices. My role is a advisor, a support system, a structure stabilizer for getting information across the country, and a cheerleader for what the work they do. Many of our law enforcement liaisons are technicians and instructors. They work continually with the communities. They provide information, and then most importantly, beyond that, they work with our law enforcement agencies. And sadly, our law enforcement agencies are on the front lines of the damage that seatbelts not being worn, child safety seats not being installed correctly really comes to the forefront. They have to see these things in a scope that nobody else wants to, and certainly nobody else needs to. For most part, 100% preventable offenses that can often lead to tragic results. And it's our law enforcement agencies out there on that front lines doing that work that goes one step further when they get into the enforcement programs, when they respond to the annual click it or ticket mobilization, when they are out there in their regular patrol duties and they see a vehicle being operated with the driver not wearing a seatbelt. It's their opportunity now at this point in time to have a contact with that driver and have some education. And that education can come in many forms. Primarily, we see that education in enforcement or talk. And right now, we're seeing a lot of the communication or the contacts ending in a good conversation about safety and the safety and the importance of that seatbelt being worn properly. And I can tell you firsthand in my own experience as a police officer, more often than not, my contacts with people that came down to seatbelts, it was an education opportunity. It was to talk to them. We would see people often wearing the shoulder belt behind their back for comfort reasons, or they didn't like the way it touched their neck. It was a great opportunity at that point in time and to talk about proper adjustments or aids that could help offset some of those pinch points. But then there was always people that they just, for whatever reason, would not wear a seatbelt, and you could talk to them all you wanted and nothing would ever change. So enforcement was going to be one of the tactics that you had to utilize. No matter what, though, with my role as the Law Enforcement Liaison Program Manager, I get to hear so many great stories from our law enforcement liaisons. In fact, I'm right now involved in delivering a course to our LELs about the importance of the work that they do. And the modules we just finished up, one was marketing and one focused a case study on click it or ticket and occupant protection and some of the great work our law enforcement liaisons have done. But before I want to spill everything and talk more about that, I think we've got a really more important opportunity that we can hear from the other experts that are on this panel. And I look forward to that. I'm going to be as much of a fan as anybody else is that's listening. So Kerry, I'm ready to be part of this great panel.
Sounds great. So I'm going to invite Kristin and Jackie and Tenille to go ahead and turn their cameras back on so that we can begin our panel discussion. Hello again. And everybody out there, we do have questions and I'm dialing in the ones that you're submitting. So please feel free to type them into your questions box. You know, one thing that Tim just talked about and that came up as well when Jackie was talking is about technology. So Kristin, I mean, you're doing a lot of tech with this. You know, what role does technology serve in improving seatbelt use adoption?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Obviously, Uber is a technology company, so we really do rely a lot on what are some tech interventions that we can have. You know, I will say I think technology is a key part of the solution, but not the only solution. I think what we're really seeing is, you know, like technology alone is not going to prevent a drunk driver from hitting another vehicle, right? So it's just a part of the solutions and a part of the safe system. But on the occupant protection side, you know, we've done a number of different interventions to see what is the most effective. And our latest product is this audio seatbelt reminders. This is a product that we're continually reiterating on and refining to try to figure out what the best use of it is and the best timing for it. So, you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, when a driver starts a trip, there will be an audio sound that's similar to like when you're in an airplane, for instance, and it reminds you about the seatbelt, but it also doubles up by having a push notification to the rider. So we're really always thinking about, like, first of all, like, what's the best time for technology? What's the best intervention moment that we can hit people at the time when they're starting to make a decision and influence that decision? And then what are the different things that we can be doing, you know, to make sure that it's not just a single intervention, but that it has multiple sort of pieces to it. So, so we're really proud of that product, but we also think that, again, it's education's part of it. And in the case of our seatbelt alerts, you know, we really created this because there wasn't in-vehicle technology that's standard for backseat seatbelts in all use. So ultimately, we'd love if that was going to be the case in every vehicle, that there was really strong backseat seatbelt reminders. We wouldn't need this kind of intervention product, but we do kind of fill those gaps in the meantime.
Yeah, you know, earlier this year, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety completed a review of the seatbelt reminders that come in vehicles, and they found that many SUVs really struggled to get the message across. You know, do you see your app as a complement to that? You know, how is it different? What are some ways that because we do have to continue to work together to try to hit it from all angles to make sure that everybody in the vehicle is buckled up?
Yeah, you know, as I said, we're continuing to refine it. So we've learned some things already in the process. Like, for instance, our timing of the initial alert was the wrong time because there was already so many things that were happening when you're getting into a vehicle and starting the trip, and it kind of got lost in that shuffle. So we're always, you know, I think that's one of the benefits for us, is because we can be really nimble to these sort of things and continue to be testing. Again, you know, hopefully all vehicles will have the audio seatbelt reminders in the back seat, and we may choose to still continue to have ours just as an extra step, again, to be reminding. So we'll see, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Well, now we're going to go from, I guess, in the vehicle, and we're going to focus more on in the pocket and social media. So Jackie, you were very focused on virtual. So did you advertise on social media? How did you get your messages out about the virtual C-checks that you were now offering through COVID and now continuing beyond? Oh, wait, you're muted. Is
it better?
Yes, it is.
Sorry about that. Looked like it was lit. So we went right to social media. We have, you know, Safe Kids has a website, and a social media page. So we were right, you know, putting it all over on there. I'm on a bunch of the moms groups because when we do an event, we advertise it there. And I'll tell you, I think people were looking for it right away. So, you know, literally, you know, after the first 2 weeks, it was like every single day I could work day and night and weekends if I wanted to, for the virtual. So it went pretty much viral very quickly on all social media platforms. Anybody I knew from anywhere, I was doing in education inspections all over the United States. People were finding out, oh, my cousin's pregnant, or my mother knows somebody, and I'm like, sure, bring it on, because it didn't matter. We were still getting the point across that, you know, it's here and we're going to keep going. And I did a lot of questions of how did you find out about us, and it was always through social media. And we don't all love social media, but for that reason, it really worked. Definitely worked.
Did you, I mean, you had mentioned before that you pretty much used FaceTime, but, you know, did you have to learn any new apps? You know, what were some ways that you had to build out your knowledge base?
Yeah, so so obviously non-iPhone users don't have the FaceTime, so we went to WhatsApp. And I ended up teaching parents about WhatsApp. I was pretty impressed with myself. And then we also did some Facebook Live stuff. People, you know, one of the hardest things was if they lost the connection. So if they were home, which most of the people were home, they're like, all right, I'm going to walk out to my garage. If I lose you, I'll call you right back. Or my husband's phone only has 3%. Let me go switch phones. And those were kinds of some of the, the things that are happening. But, you know, every time I planned a virtual, I gave an hour. Like, it was right off the bat, you have an hour of my time, whatever you need, because some of the parents really struggled. You know, I had an older couple, literally in their 80s, like we rebuilt a car seat together, you know, so that wasn't going to be a 15-minute, you know, educational. So we rebuilt their car seat. And then once they realized I was out there, if they needed me again, they found me very quickly. So there were a few people from around the United States that said, are you still doing those virtual educations? And I'm like, bring it on. What do you need? And so it was great. Most of the people are more local now, but, you know, during the COVID times, people are from all over. And the one funny thing, though, I will add, Kerry, is when mom or dad was holding the phone and they were trying to get a different angle and they'd start moving the phone, I have to admit, sometimes I was like getting nauseous from the phone moving so much. I'm like, stop right there. And they were like, what? I'm like, hold on a second, I just gotta, you know, get myself together again. And once in a while I'd snap a picture of them doing something funny and I'd send it to them and they would laugh. And, you know, so we definitely had some fun, and I've been able to get some permission to use some of those pictures in some of the presentations. So they've been carried on for a long time.
Sounds good. Well, I know that Facebook is kind of, I was going to say older person social media. Tenille, you were working with teens. Do you use, with your SAFE program, do you incorporate social media or other technology into it?
Absolutely. We are very active on Facebook still, even though they say that's not where the kids are. We're active there because that's where the sponsors are, to be honest. We have a Twitter account, we have an Instagram account. We have done some things with Snapchat, some very limited, like when we've had events, we've done Snapchat filters for the kids, and they seem to love that. And the reach for that it's mind-blowing how wide it goes with these kids. So yeah, we utilize all media, all social media. We've not ventured into TikTok yet. I think that's going to be our next venture. But if we do that, we are going to utilize our student board that we have. We just started this last year. We created a statewide student board, so we have kids from all the regions that sit on the board. There's about 12 of them. And so if we go into TikTok, we're going to have to utilize those kids because I can't make that content. And my team maybe wants to, but there's just not enough of us to do that. So yeah, we're looking at the future of what that looks like with social media, because that is where the kids are. So that's how we get the message to them.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to just kick it back to Tim. You know, I know that you're active on social. What are some ways that you are able to communicate some of these campaigns and promote the use of belts through your LEL network and beyond?
Well, one of the greatest things that we have within our LEL network is the fact that it is a true network, and we are constantly talking with each other to promote great ideas or share thoughts and visions and the way things have worked. But we also use social media, and we worked on identifying that our target audience, truly who we are communicating with, is our law enforcement liaison network. But as a benefited result of that, we do reach the public, the general public at large, and law enforcement agencies. So when the public sees a law enforcement agency or our LEL network or our own program putting out information, it tips them to the fact that, you know, they're not just out here to, you know, be an enforcer. They're out here to actually save lives and to help people. And that's been a big discussion with our LEL conference right now, is the fact that our main mission is to save lives and do our part we're not necessarily out on the front lines doing the enforcement anymore. So that's where our communication tools work so effectively to reach our law enforcement agencies in partnership with the state highway safety offices to share that great information that's going on. And a lot of this information will be shared during our click it or ticket operations that are mobilizations sponsored by NHTSA, our great partner at the federal level. But it does roll right down to the grassroots small town communities that they might not qualify for a grant fund, but what they do need is information. Traffic Safety Marketing Institute, or Traffic Safety Marketing, is a fantastic tool that is offered by NHTSA at the federal level that provides free digital assets, press releases, just great marketing strategies and tips and ideas for those small agencies that really don't have a marketing budget and don't have the ability to do this themselves. So we make sure that we share that information, because information in the end is truly going to be the big difference between hoping for behavior change and seeing behavior change. And for those agencies that can't do it, it's a lifesaver for them, and we really appreciate that kind of stuff. But at the same time, those are our official partners. The people that we have on this call right now on this webinar, they're great partners as well, because we get to share each other's information and expand that network and pull that in. The other day, I was in the ride share, and Robert, my driver, he said that it's rare that he sees somebody that gets into the backseat and actually buckles up right away. Well, it's simply because Robert's recognizing that, and he tells me that he talks to every single person that gets back in the back of his car to buckle up. That's more information that's sharing. So we got all these different tools to do it, and it's not the importance of one over another. It's important as using as many as you can effectively and efficiently. And I rely on our law enforcement network so much to get that information out, not just to the agencies, but to the public as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And you mentioned a great resource, traffic safety marketing. And actually, that's going to kick me back. We do have a question from the audience. Kristin, there are some people that are wondering where the report is that you mentioned. They're looking for some of the stats on the Uber website. And I was wondering if you could maybe give them some guidance on where they can go.
Sure, I'd be happy to drop the link to the safety report in the chat to everybody, so you can see it right there, and it's downloadable there as well. I did just want to echo one thing Tim was just saying about the importance of really good marketing. You know, one of the things that we do is we have just so many great photos of people who are wearing seatbelts in all different types of scenarios, right? So that it's not just we're not digging through, do we have a good seatbelt picture? It's just seatbelts are part of the whole experience that people are having. And so I would really encourage folks to use the resources that Tim said of, you know, like, do you just have really great photos of people that are enjoying themselves, that are out in the world and are wearing seatbelts? So it's not just about seatbelts, it's just seatbelts are part of the overall experience of life.
Thank you, Kristin. You know, one of the things that we've been kind of talking about tangentially are partnerships, and they are really essential for many programs. So I'm going to kind of go through and ask each of you, but I'm going to start with Tenille. You know, how do you recruit schools and law enforcement for the SAFE program? Actually, how do you get started? Because I know there's probably a lot of people that want to find out more about the SAFE program. So could you also, while you're at it, tell people how they can get it in their area?
Yeah. So if you're interested in the SAFE program, we have a web page. So I'll have Kerry send that out tomorrow with the references that she's going to do. It's on our Kansas Traffic Safety Resource page, but there's a link to get to us, and then we can set up a time and we can help you set up your program there locally. We feel it's really important to stay in contact with you all if you do it, because we want to keep the integrity of the program to make sure that the data is still comparable. So yeah, I would be happy to talk to anybody that's interested in bringing the program to their state for their teams. Now, to answer your question about local partners and how we get into schools, we have utilized law enforcement liaisons tremendously over the last 15 years. They are the ones that initially go in and make that contact with the local police department or local sheriff's office. Do that because hopefully they know someone at the school, so they can get us into the school a little easier. If not, we just do, you know, drop the school, and hopefully someone is willing to visit with us that day, or at least set up another meeting. When this first started, we had one dedicated staff member, and she went all the way around the state and would just drop into high schools and say, hey, we have this program. Are you interested in doing it? And as you know, that's cumbersome. We're a large state, mileage. And so she would be out for a time out in western Kansas because that's it's 5 hours to get to the edge of the state from where we are at the Capitol here in Topeka. So now we have expanded that staff. So we actually have staff members in each region of the state go and visit the schools and make those local connections. Another part that we utilize is the State Farm local agent network. We partnered with them for funding for the prizes years ago. They were a main partner of our AAA. And so we would use their local agents to try to get into the schools that way as well. Health departments too, because we manage the CPS program here in the state. We have local contacts pretty much anywhere that we may want to go to. So we've utilized those local people that we already had connections with. So those CPS technicians, health department people. And so we would go and say, hey, we really want to do this. You know someone. What can you get us in there? So those local partners are really important when it comes to
Actually, Tenille, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Could you move a little bit closer to your mic because it's getting a little bit harder to hear you, and we want to hear every word that you're saying.
Is that better? Yes. So we've utilized any and every bit of local information that we can get out of the communities to get in there and see how we can set up the program. It's really important to develop those relationships though. So actually having staff go out and be there and meet them face to face. We've done virtual now for 3 years and it's great and it works well once the program's set up. But those schools that, that initial setup, it's just so much easier and so much more personable if you're face to face and you get that connection to the program a little bit better. So thanks, Kerry.
Thank you. I'm going through, we do have a lot of questions, so I'm going to incorporate them in. Jackie, we have a question if you encountered any resistance to your virtual seat checks, especially when it comes to liability concerns or something like that. And then follow up to that, how do you see virtual seat checks kind of filling the gaps to get into underserved communities? I had to mute her, everybody, because there was interference. So I think she has to click the button again. Okay, well, while we figure this out, we do have a question from, we'll go to this one from Leah. Kristin, this is for you. Would Uber ever reward points or discount codes for buckled up passengers during a national seatbelt campaign?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and certainly incentives are always something that we're considering, both on the sort of driver side and on the rider side. So definitely something we would consider. It can be a little bit challenging. Like I think in the case of seatbelts, one of the challenges for us is to really know if people actually are buckling up, right? And so it's hard to get that granular data. So we're looking at ways that we can really just see, like, how do we get the accurate feedback on whether people are actually buckling up? Maybe it is that they send us a photo of them buckled up. It's something we'll definitely consider, but I love that idea. Always happy to use the carrot approach when possible. So great suggestion.
Thank you. Going back to partnerships, Tim, are there any unique or like underutilized partner organizations that law enforcement has seen success with that maybe we can encourage some of our attendees to go out and make those connections or reinforce them, or just resurrect ones that maybe have died away a little bit over time?
Well, it's one of the partnerships that has really historically had a strong success rate, but is not used enough. And I think part of it is just because of the times. Driver's ed programs within the schools. That's really where we see the basis of the foundation of the importance of a seatbelt, not just for that beginning when you're learning to drive, but a lot of our law enforcement agencies or law enforcement liaisons have said that when they were able to use driver's ed programs and use them as a partner, they saw a lot of success. We see, sadly, less driver's ed programs than we used to, and I think that's the sign of the times. But that is one where you can get the youth right early on. That's a great beginning. With that partnership, one of the LALs I was talking to yesterday said the parents of new drivers, they're going into DMV offices in their state on a regular basis and leaving information so that the parents can understand the importance of it. This state, sadly, has its only secondary enforcement laws. So when they don't see the seatbelt being worn, but there's no other reason to stop that person, they really can't do too much. So if they can provide the information, the importance of the wearing the seatbelt at that time, great opportunity. Public health agencies and law enforcement are a natural fit together. So making sure that law enforcement is invited to talk to prenatal classes on the importance of it. And in some cases, and I had this one myself, is women that wouldn't wear their seatbelts properly because of the baby bump. Well, it's designed that it's perfectly safe. And you guys, as technicians, you know that much better than I do, but it was just that education part. So it was great partnerships there that we could do. Some of the outside of the box thinking that they've heard is there was a agency just outside of Clearwater, Florida, small agency. They had seen the distracted driving approach, standing at the end of a highway ramp, looking like somebody that was out there asking for money or just enjoying the sunshine. And they were on the radio. It's a law enforcement officer on the radio with a team around the corner, and they were identifying for the distracted driving. Well, this officer took it upon himself and said, why can't we do that for seatbelts? And they did the exact same thing and utilized what was the distracted driving technique, people on their cell phones on the roads, and did it simply for seatbelts because you're so much closer. And that's one of the challenges that law enforcement has. I mean, a lot of people don't recognize. It's difficult at the best of times to see whether seatbelts are being worn. A dark clothing with a dark interior vehicle, it's very difficult. Even our seatbelt observers that check usage rates, they'll say the exact same thing. It would be great if there was no tints on cars, everybody wore white t-shirts and had black interiors. That would be perfect. It's just not going to happen. So they took that one step and thought, how do we get closer to the vehicles in a safe manner that really isn't in your face or anything like that? And they thought, well, let's do this. And they're seeing a lot of success with it. But again, they focus primarily on education first, enforcement second.
Yeah, and it sounds like you answered a little bit of a question from Lila about how do you assess seatbelt use, especially in the rear seat. It's a little bit of a challenge. And it sounds like law enforcement just has to continually kind of up their game and figure out ways to improve. So that's great.
Well, on that, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump back in.
Go ahead.
One of the things that they said was that their seatbelt observers, one of them took it upon themselves to actually get closer to traffic. We see a lot of the observations done so it's comfortable because it's tough to do seatbelt observation for a long period of time. They were getting out and closer to the traffic, and they were able to see a lot more of the back seat and that. So it's sometimes you have to do different things, I guess.
I don't know, that kind of scared me a little bit, but Jackie is unmuted and she's ready to answer. And as a reminder, could you talk a little bit about if you had any concerns about liability with your video seat checks, and also if you see it as virtual seat checks as a way to kind of get into some more communities that maybe haven't had that access in the past?
Yeah, so we didn't, in the beginning, that was the reason we didn't start, on March 12th, because we weren't sure if there was going to be a liability issue. And when we realized we are literally not touching a car seat, where's the liability? We're just reading from the owner's manuals, and that's what we were doing. Parents were pulling out the owner's manuals, look at this page, look at this, and see that, and then we did the installation. So there was nothing there. There's no liability because we're not doing any of it. We did reach out to, my supervisor, KJ, and I, both in different ways. She reached out a lot to the senior communities. I was still trying to reach out to some of our underserved population. And I think that some of it will continue, Kerry, especially in the winter time. I think there's always an option. But here in New Jersey, we're seeing definitely more people and come into our inspections and come into our car fit programs and interested in that. And I think it's because we have so many inspection sites, and go to like South Dakota and there's not as many people out there, and You know, I know some of the instructors are saying this is a fantastic opportunity because we can reach so many more people. I think we really have to take into consideration our demographics. You know, everybody's so tight here in Jersey and in other parts of the states. You know, we're all over the place. You know, so I think that has a lot to do with it. I know it has a lot to do with whether the virtuals will continue.
And you know, one of the things that you mentioned was really going out into some of the more rural areas. Has coverage, like internet coverage or cell phone coverage, been a problem, or have people been pretty much able to make it work?
So I had a woman in California at a Walmart, forgot that she was going to meet with me, and I always made them contact me. I wasn't going to go searching. I was there from 8 to 4. Your time is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You call me. And the one time she didn't call, and one and only, believe it or not, I called her and she's like, "Oh my God, I forgot, I'm at Walmart." And I said, "Do you want to do it?" So we did the installation in Walmart. You know, it didn't matter to me. I'm sitting home. But every once in a while there were some issues. Most of the time they were able to work it through or figure it out, and every once in a while it would end up with just a phone call. Since I had already seen the seat, I knew the car that was going in, And I said this before, and I was saying this to some of the people that I'm teaching today in our CPS class. I am very, very lucky to see so many different car seats and so many different vehicles, because I didn't have to go back and do the research and see if the car was going to be compatible or the car seat was going to be compatible. So it makes it a lot easier when I'm doing the virtuals to know right off the top of my head, okay, this might have this or might have that. So that plays a big part of it.
And as you mentioned, I mean, we're really focusing, it sounds like more about kids, but you also mentioned you do car fit. Are you able to do car fit virtually? Is that something you think kind of might be on the horizon?
Car fit is actually being offered through ARP right now virtually. You just have to contact them directly. When I had initially asked if they were going to allow instructors to do, or coordinators to do it, this was in the very beginning, so I don't know if it's changed, but they were like, "No, we're doing it." That's going to be our thing. So I don't know if they're going to loosen the rein on that at all, but they have a lot of changes too, given their program with a lot of seniors, within their agency. So we'll see. I'm not sure, but you don't have to do car fit. You can do the basics of car fit for adults. It doesn't have to be a full-blown car fit, just like we teach in child passenger safety. It doesn't have to be a CPS cert class. It can be like, what about harnesses? So we can, take it in pieces and put it together.
Yeah, you can always at the end of your check, or even if anybody's doing a video call and they have a friend who maybe is by a car, have them get in the car and show you how to buckle up, because you'll see if they start putting it under their arm or behind their back, and then you can talk about the importance of having a properly fitting lap shoulder belt. So I know everybody on the panel and probably most people in the audience have seen some seatbelt use that could be improved a little bit. So we are almost done. I'm going to ask you for kind of your final thoughts, but before I do, Kristin, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what's next for Uber and occupant protection. You've got the buckle up reminder. What's on the horizon?
Yeah, we'll continue to be refining that feature, and just we're getting some feedback already from drivers and riders about it. Right now we heard 80% of drivers who we surveyed about it said they think it's a really great feature, and we should be doing more things like that. So getting some good thumbs up from drivers, and of course, like, we know that it's a driver safety issue, right? An unbuckled passenger is a danger to anybody else in the vehicle, and so that's top of mind for our messaging. I think the other thing is just getting more creative. I love that question about the incentives. Are there other ways that we can just continue to be thinking about how to really incentivize and encourage seatbelt use for that final reminder? And then I would say for us, one of the challenges just has been kind of what Tim talked about. We don't have great external data about seatbelt use. There's been some surveys, but we know people might not always be honest about that or remember exactly like whether they actually do buckle up or if they're buckling up correctly. So it would be really beneficial if anybody on the call is doing any kind of more in-depth research. We would love to see that and incorporate that into our work. And then finally, We worked with, in terms of partners, GHSA and Volvo on creating National Seatbelt Day a few years ago. Would love to dust that off and get that out there again and just have a sort of steady cadence of education around seatbelts. And also just welcome any input. You know, GHSA is our conduit to the local DOTs and transportation safety officers. So please send them your ideas, and we'd love to figure out how we incorporate that into our partnership.
Yeah, that sounds great. And so before closing comments, I want to invite all the attendees, if you have any suggestions or advice or anything you'd like to do, just put it in the questions box. It doesn't have to be an actual question. It could be a suggestion or a resource for GHSA or our panelists. So Tim, I'll start with you. Any closing thoughts before we end the webinar today?
Sure. Earlier this week, I was at a conference in Missouri, and one of the things, it was a law enforcement conference specific. One of the things they did was they actually surveyed the attendees. They're the people that were coming in on the travel days, and did a survey on seatbelt use. I thought that was a really neat opportunity to tell your people that are in the business how they're doing through a blind survey like that. That was great. One of the important things I would feel remiss if I didn't talk about is we lose law enforcers every year for failing to wear their seatbelts in the vehicles. And there's a myriad of reasons why they choose not to buckle up. And one of the most popular ones I hear is to get out of the car as fast as you possibly can to go render that aid and help. One of the challenges there, if you don't get there alive, you can't render that aid and that help, and you need to be there for that. With that same conference did a contest to see who could, it was a challenge, anybody who wanted to get in could do it. You had to sit in a police vehicle, have it in gear, get out or put it in park, get the seatbelt off, exit the vehicle, and put a water bottle on top of a pylon to show you still are at some sort of control. And it's miraculous how quick it can be done. The excuse is, I don't think, and in fact, I know they don't measure up to the fact that you need to stay alive to be able to have any assistance. So I'm asking all our law enforcers, buckle up.
Sounds great, thank you. Tenille, any final thoughts today?
I just want to, I think Tim alluded to this earlier. You know, the earlier we can get to these kids to get into the habit of buckling up, the better off we are. You know, my kids, for example, have grown up with me being in this realm, and so that is not even an option. Like, they don't even think about not buckling up. So I think if we can start that message quickly when they're young, and get that peer pressure a little bit, then they're more apt to continue buckling up the older they get. So for the future of SAFE, you know, we're looking at expanding the program to other states, expanding it still here in the state of Kansas. We're not in every school yet. We are in 136, so that's really great. We had 172 before COVID, but you know, the world has changed, so we're kind of adapting with it. And we're really looking at the program and the educational piece of it and how effective that is. And comparing the schools that have a really robust program to those that just kind of muddle their way through it throughout the year. So we're looking to improve some of those quality controls of it. And I'm really excited about the future of it and where it's going to go. Thank you, Kerry.
You're welcome. And we will include some links to the resources like SAFE, like the Uber report in the follow-up email that will go out tomorrow. So Jackie, final thoughts? I'm just going to say educate, 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 educate. That's it. We're all doing the same thing, same mission. So keep talking and keep the conversation going with everybody and anyone. Kids, like, I agree. Let's start with the kids and work our way up. That's why I love doing booster seat education with the kindergartners. They learn it there and they take it home. And can you imagine being the fly on the wall when they're being told, their parents are being told that they have to be back in a booster seat? So yeah, educate, educate, educate. Simple. Sounds good. And Kristin, back to you. Any last thoughts before we close out the webinar today?
No, I think I gave mine in the last round, but this has been really great. And, you know, I do think it takes a whole coalition to be tackling this. So really happy to be part of the private sector that's working on that, and welcome your ideas of how we can be better partners.
Well, thank you. And again, a special thank you to our sponsor, the Auto Glass Safety Council, and our panelists, Kristin Smith, Jackie Stackhouse Leach, Tenille Kimberlin, and Tim Burrows. We hope you're leaving with new ideas to help us get to 100% belt use, as well as understanding how critical the role of windshields play in occupant protection. And of course, we want to see you in Louisville this September 17th through 21st. We have registration and details on our website, ghsa.org. We've got wonderful speakers, including William Bratton, who spent 46 years in law enforcement and is the only person to lead the police departments of 2 of America's largest cities, and Jane Pauley, the Emmy-winning host of CBS Sunday Morning. And there's really so much more. We hope you'll be able to join us. Again, a hearty thank you to our sponsor and our speakers, and a thank you to you for joining us today. We'll see you in Louisville.